Good morning, everyone. I hope your week has been going well. Hi, I'm Lori's Journey, and if this is your first time here, then I am just a simple mom that's doing the Atkins diet, and I do videos about my experiences. So if that's something you're interested in, then go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel and do all those fun things. So today I'm going to be continuing on with the Dr. Atkins Diet Revolution book. I hope that you've been enjoying what we've been reading so far. If you have any questions or comments while we're reading, then go ahead and leave it in the comment section. And just a little reminder there, I'm not a medical professional, and this is just my experience that I share with you guys. And so we will continue on. This chapter is called How I Arrived at This Diet Revolution. I hope in this book to change your weight, your outlook on your life itself. Discovering this diet did all these things for me. Let me tell you how it came about. I started off as a very thin child. When I got out of high school, I was 6 feet tall and weighed only 135 pounds. I was the skinniest kid on the block. My parents had tried to get me to eat, and all of us were happy when I finally developed one hell of an appetite. At college, I became the biggest eater on campus. It finally began to take. I put on 40 pounds by the time I graduated. Then I gained more weight in medical school and during my internship and residency. I had the reputation of being the biggest chow hound in the hospital. I was overweight, but my image of myself was that I was skinny, so it didn't bother me. That's kind of interesting. It wasn't until 1963, after another 10 years of gaining, that I suddenly realized, seeing myself in a photograph, that I had 3 chins. The photo was on my identification badge for my new job as a medical consultant for AT&T. I knew it was I because it had my name on it, but I thought I'd better double check. Do I really have 3 chins? I asked the nurse. She nodded. So there it was. I was no longer a skinny kid. I was a fat man, and I looked 15 years older than I really was. Even the idea of hunger scares me. Well, I guess I'd known it for quite a while, but I'd been faced with another problem. I was literally afraid of dieting. I was afraid of being hungry. I think a lot of people don't go on diets because they fear hunger. There must be millions of people who react the way I do. Every overweight person has experimented at some point in his life with eating less and then being defeated by hunger. For him, this kind of dieting is a biologically improper adaptation. I knew about diets, but the trouble was, they all told me to stop when I had eaten 7 or 8 ounces of my steak. That's only half a portion. I knew from experience that halfway through a steak, I was hungrier than when I sat down. I knew that I could never follow a low-calorie diet for even one day. And I have almost no willpower. I have a big appetite, but I have very little willpower. If I am with a group of people waiting at a restaurant where the service is slow, I always did and still will call over the waiter and say, "Look, give me something to eat while I'm waiting to be served." I have no tolerance for hunger. However, since I had to carry that badge and look at those 3 chins every day, I decided I better do something about my extra weight. Looking back at this period in my life, I realize what a fortunate thing it was that my training had been in cardiology and not in metabolism. If I had been trained in nutrition and metabolism, I'd be parroting the same classical misconceptions that so many of my colleagues still hang on to. Being free of these misconceptions allowed my mind then and since to approach the observable facts without prejudice. Anyhow, I started out by researching the medical literature for some sort of a clue as to what I could do for myself. One can fast, yet not be hungry. One evening, I read about the work that Dr. Garfield Duncan had done in nutrition at the University of Pennsylvania. Fasting patients, he reported, lose all sense of hunger after 48 hours without food. That stunned me. It does me too. Incredible that I could find myself not hungry after going without food for 48 hours. How could that possibly be? That defied logic. I wanted to know why. I was looking for the hungry man's diet. As I searched, I found more pieces of the puzzle. I read the work of two of those brilliant English researchers, Professor Keckwick and Dr. Pawan, who had shown what a fat-mobilizing substance was present in the urine when the diet had been free of carbohydrate for 48 hours. This and the presence of ketone bodies in the urine signified that the body was satisfying its hunger by burning its own fat as fuel. No carbohydrates also means no hunger. Great news, I thought. If the absence of carbohydrate can switch one's body engine over from being a carbohydrate-burning engine to being a fat-burning engine, then perhaps I can eat all of my steak, which is carbohydrate-free, and lose my fat at the same time. And a wonderful byproduct could be like Garfield Duncan's fasting patients. I wouldn't be hungry. At the same time, I came upon some important information from the late Dr. Alfred W. Pennington of the DuPont Company, who postulated that overweight is frequently explained by an intrinsic metabolic defect. He suggested a treatment for it that does not restrict calories. Dr. Pennington had proved it on DuPont employees. He had proved that his treatment worked shortly after World War II, when the medical division of the DuPont Company gave him the job of trying to find out why low-calorie diets failed with so many of their staff members. As a result of his studies, Pennington decided that overweight could be caused not by overeating, but by a metabolic defect in an inability of the body to utilize carbohydrates for anything except making fat. So he designed a test diet. 20 staff members volunteered to try it. The diet eliminated sugar and starches and gave protein and fat instead. This, of course, was a ketogenic diet, which means that the absence of carbohydrates caused ketones to be spilled over in the urine, a sign that the fat mobilizing hormone is circulating in the bloodstream. Excuse me. There was no calorie counting on Dr. Pennington's diet. The basic diet allowed 3,000 calories a day, but anyone who was hungry was free to eat without limit. During the test period, all 20 of his dieters reported that they felt well and they were never hungry. And at the end, they had lost an average of 22 pounds in an average of 3.5 months. Those who had high blood pressure discovered happily that it had dropped, parallel to their drop in weight. I'm going to get a drink here. If you do have any thoughts about this, go ahead and leave a comment and we'll discuss it after I finish reading today. But at this time in 1972, this was so controversial. They had never heard of such a thing. That's crazy. I read about a diet I felt I'd like to try myself. Finally, I read about the ketogenic diet that Walter Lyons Bloom of Atlanta, Georgia, reported on. The purpose of the diet was merely to test the metabolic changes in a no-carbohydrate diet, not to treat patients. He was able to show that the same remarkable disappearance of hunger that occurred during a fast also occurred on a no-carbohydrate diet. And because absence of hunger was what I was looking for, I was fascinated with Dr. Bloom's diet. It sounded delicious to me. Bacon and eggs for breakfast, plenty of meat, and even salad for lunch and dinner. After each of the papers that I mentioned appeared, it always was followed by a rash of others fiercely disputing these findings. But in spite of their critics, these new concepts sounded to me like logical and promising alternatives to low-calorie dieting. In 1963, I decided to try Walter Bloom's diet. It's very easy for me to remember when this happened. At that time, I had been working with a diagnostic clinic that I thought was going to contribute enormously to medicine in New York. Then the hospital where we were practicing was sold, and the clinic folded. Everything in my life seemed to be breaking wrong. I was in the midst of this depression that I decided to go on this diet. I don't know where I found the courage. I guess it wasn't courage, it was desperation, really. I began on this ketogenic diet in spite of having read a great many medical papers telling me that it wasn't sound, that it wouldn't work. I began my hungry man's diet and checking for ketones. Of course, it was easy for me to check for the presence of ketone bodies in the urine. I had known how to do that since my second year of medical school. An ordinary urine test stick or tablet devised for this purpose and available at any drugstore for the asking turns purple on testing when ketone bodies are present. I soon discovered that even if I added 10 or 15 grams to carbohydrate, after a zero carbohydrate start, the test tablet still turned purple. That meant that my body was continuing to burn up my fat. I could snack on cheese, cold cuts, cold shrimp, cottage cheese, and have a filling salad with each meal. For dessert, I discovered creamy ricotta cheese, which I enhanced with artificial sweeteners and flavored many different ways. And he has a recipe in the recipe section of this book. That you can go to Walgreens or probably Walmart or anywhere like that, and if you go into the diabetic section, you will find the ketone strips. You can also buy it on like Amazon and different places, so they're easy to find. Not hungry even on 40 grams of carbohydrate. By trial and error, I found as time went on that I could have 35 to 40 grams of carbohydrates a day and still lose without hunger if I added them gradually enough. That meant some vegetables, sometimes melon, big fresh strawberries smothered in whipped cream. I even found that I could resume an occasional scotch and water before dinner. And I was eating all day, small meals, but eating. I made it a point to go home from the hospital 3 times or so a day to fill up again. When I started being my own guinea pig, I knew I was going to eat a lot of food and felt that I would be lucky to lose 3 or 4 pounds in a month. I was truly surprised. In fact, it was probably the greatest surprise of my life when at the end of 6 weeks on this diet, I had lost 28 pounds. I felt an odd combination of mixed emotions at losing so much so fast. Of course, I was delighted, but that wasn't all. What I felt actually was a combination of exhilaration and resentment. Exhilaration because of the gratifying amount of weight I had lost, and resentment because I had been duped so long by the misinformation given to me in the medical literature. What I had read was the same tired 50-year-old nutritional dogma that is still being dished out today, that there was only one way to lose weight, a low-calorie diet. With my big appetite, of course, that was always out for me. Now I thought, how can so many experts be so wrong for so long? Because I lost the weight not only on a low-calorie diet, but on a carbohydrate-free diet of high-calorie foods, eating all I wanted. The more I ate, the more I lost. I actually ate this weight off. I spent more time eating during those 6 weeks than usual. This was because the very idea of dieting made me afraid of being hungry. I never was hungry. I was just afraid that I would be hungry, so I kept eating. And it didn't seem to slow me down. The thing I remember most about those days was waking in the morning an hour or so before my alarm rang, because I wanted to feel my belly, feel how it was smaller every day. I used to jump out of bed at 6 in the morning in a frenzy of excitement to find out whether I had lost another pound or two. And invariably, the scale showed that I had. Later I found that this early awakening might not just have been the excitement of seeing my body image change. It was probably due to the fact that my blood sugar was being stabilized by my very low carbohydrate diet. This always results in a big lift in energy and spirits. Thinking back on that time, I didn't realize how sleepy, tired, lazy I had always been until I went on my diet. I thought I felt well before I started the diet. It was only after I had been on the diet that I noticed the improvement and suddenly realized that I hadn't been feeling up to par. This is a phenomenon I invite all readers to experience. I'm glad you're enjoying the reading. I was hoping that this would be educational and help people get started. It really gave me a refresher reading this book the first time. I'm enjoying it the second time as well. Let's see. Yeah, this is quite a long chapter. I guess it's not that long. Okay. 65 AT&T employees try my diet and lose weight. This is crazy. Of course, my new colleagues in the medical department at AT&T noticed those 28 pounds drop off, and they noticed how much I was eating, how good. It wasn't hard to convince everybody that a weight control pilot study would be a good preventive medicine for our personnel. We ended with 65 people on my diet. The results were astonishing. Without a single exception, every individual who started on the program not only got down to his ideal weight, but remained there. Nobody ever complained of being hungry. Some volunteered that they had never eaten so much. Most averaged a loss of 18 pounds in the first month. One executive lost 6 pounds in 4 months. I felt that he had been physically and mentally rejuvenated. Another who lost 54 pounds in 5 months especially liked the fact that the weight loss fixed the trouble I had with my feet, which prevented my walking more than half an hour with great pain. I'm now able to go hiking. Still another, who lost 28 pounds in 5 weeks, said he felt like a new man. I do more walking, running, exercising than ever before. How this diet differs from other low carbohydrate diets. It was in 1964, while I was testing this diet program at AT&T, that a rash of diets featuring 60 grams of carbohydrates became popular. The Air Force diet, the drinking man's diet, the martinis and whipped cream diet. Carlton Fredericks came out with a 60-gram diet. So did a man I have mentioned admiring greatly, John Yudkin. Everyone said, "Hey, look, they've got your diet, Doc." I said, "Well, I don't know." I knew that if my patients were to keep losing, they had to be kept in ketosis, so that urine test sticks turned purple. In contrast, all the 60-gram diets were designed specifically to cut carbohydrate intake but prevent ketosis. Many people can use a 60-gram diet for maintenance after they've lost weight. And of course, the person who cuts his carbohydrate intake suddenly from a habitual 400 or 500 grams to 60 is going to get pretty dramatic response at first. But for the sophisticated dieter or the reasonable eater who had been cutting down on the carbohydrates already, there's not much weight loss on a 60-gram diet. This diet works 100% of the time. I think the important thing was that right from the start, I knew with great certainty that I was working with a diet that worked dramatically and worked all the time. This, of course, has given me a great deal of personal strength in dealing with patients. When a patient says the diet doesn't work, I know that it does, that it has to work, and therefore that something is being done wrong. Eventually, patients accept this. We discover what is being done wrong, and the diet always works. I hope the same thing will happen to you as you read this book. You're an expert on diets, I know. Why not try this diet and compare your reactions? Judge for yourself whether or not you feel better on it, have more energy, feel less hungry. Just generally enjoy the whole experience more. I question all my patients on this score. I have learned from them that when people have tried both a good low carbohydrate diet and a good low calorie diet, 95% of them will report that it is far easier to go without carbohydrates than calories. I find that to be true. I blew Bloom's diet wide open so that you can eat this way all your life. This isn't a short-term approach. It's a lifelong way of eating. You'll end up with a diet that's as personal to you as a pair of contact lenses. It's the happy way of eating, plentiful, palatable, varied. I quite deliberately opened up Bloom's test diet so that this should be so. His was a 3-day diet, and, as I said earlier, it was designed merely to observe the metabolic effect of a zero carbohydrate diet. It was bacon and eggs, meat and salad, period. This was his purpose, fine for a short-term experimental diet. But what I wanted was a diet that I could live with and enjoy the rest of my life. So I evolved this diet by trial and error. I added mayonnaise, butter, and the other fats I loved. I also added the concept of gradually adding carbohydrates until the breakoff point, the critical carbohydrate level, is reached. It makes all the difference in the world, psychologically, to be able to eat luxuriously and substantially on a diet. To have heavy cream in one's coffee, whipped cream on berries, mayonnaise, fried foods, fatty meats such as pastrami and pate, butter sauces, excuse me, and to be able to have all the good desserts you'll read about in the recipe section of the book, especially my cheesecake, which is the staff of life to most of my patients. I gotta get another drink. Its flexibility is just about infinite. There's no limit to its flexibility, and it's the only way of eating that will keep you unhungrily slim for the rest of your life. To your overworked pancreas or your recurring overweight, carbohydrates are poison. Perhaps you will have to ration your poison the rest of your life. But with the lessons to be learned in this book, it can be done with less sacrifice, less willpower than you think. I have told you how little willpower I have. Yet despite this minute despite this minute amount of willpower, I have been able to stay on this diet all the years since I first devised it. There's no need to set any speed records in weight loss. What we're aiming at is a comfort record, a lifetime way of eating. And the reason that this is a diet revolution is that you can eat this way comfortably, luxuriously, without deprivation, without a single hunger pang all your life, losing in pounds and inches, gaining in energy, happiness, and health. So that's the end of that chapter. I totally agree. Once I started on this, I'll tell you, the first 3 days, it was really hard because you're beating those sugar cravings big time, and you have to get used to a new way of eating. But I made sure I had snacks that I could have, like the beef sticks and cheese, string cheese, things like that. And I made sure that I had those things around so that I could be eating those when I was really craving the sugars and got rid of it. And I have made the mistake of getting used to eating the Atkins bars. I feel like I'm addicted to that now because I don't have one every day, but quite a bit. And it's just getting to the point that I know I need to back off of those. So I'm trying some different things, trying to go back to my beef sticks again, and we'll see. Am I familiar with Dr. Jason Fung? I don't think I've heard of him. Does he have a YouTube channel, or is it someone that's written books? Or, let me know more about who he is. But yeah, that's my experience. And about what he's saying about you're not going to be hungry, that's absolutely true. Once I started making sure I had eggs and sausage in the morning or things like that, then I started not being hungry as early. And it's just crazy. So I usually have the 2 meals a day. The obesity code. I have heard of that. So, yeah, that's interesting. I've never read it. I don't know much about it, but I have heard of it. So, is that another low carb thing, or is it something totally different? I'm curious now. But yeah, I don't know if you're just starting out or where you're at in this, but I really hope that this book is helping you out. All right. Well, thank you. Um, I've got things to do today, so I'm going to get going. So I hope that we could see each other again next week. And thank you for your comments. I'm going to have to check out that book. But I will see you next time. And until then, enjoy,